Hello, good afternoon. The BBC has found the former MI5 spy whose face-to-face contact with the IRA eventually helped bring peace to Northern Ireland, ending 3 decades of violence. The man, known as Robert, has spoken for the first time about how his secret meeting in the mid-1990s, without the government's knowledge, helped bring about peace. Peter Taylor reports.
By the early 1990s, more than 3,000 people had been killed on all sides in what was known as the Troubles. The continuing violence was fed by one question: should Northern Ireland remain in the United Kingdom or become part of a united Ireland? When peace finally came with the Good Friday Agreement, I was convinced that an MI5 secret agent had played a vital role in helping to make it happen. He ran a top-secret back channel between the British government and the leadership of the IRA. I finally tracked him down, but following MI5's rules, he lied to me and said he wasn't the man I was looking for. Then, astonishingly, in 2021, I received a letter.
Dear Mr. Taylor, you will no doubt be surprised to hear from me after so many years. For a variety of reasons, I could now give you some background which might fill in some gaps.
Robert was due to meet senior Republicans, but the government cancelled the meeting after IRA bombs in Warrington killed 2 children. Robert disobeyed orders, sensing that despite its campaign, the IRA was looking for peace. At the meeting, he gave them an extraordinary prediction.
The final solution is union. It's going to happen anyway. This island will be as one. Is that what you said?
I must have done.
That's what's in the minute that
But
they
that's
took.
if they wrote it down, then it seems quite likely.
But you had no authority to say that.
No.
And what you said flew directly in the face of what British government policy was.
Yes.
Those words were absolutely crucial, because it appeared that behind the scenes, the British government was secretly working towards a united Ireland, the IRA's goal, but to Unionists, treachery. But in the autumn of 1993, with no sign of the violence ending, Robert's secret mission was exposed. He resigned from MI5. The operation looked like a failure. But that's not the end of the story. The IRA still had a desire to carry on discussing a way forward, remembering Robert's words, "The final solution is union. This island will be as one." I believe that Robert's words helped pave the way for the ceasefire and ultimately the Good Friday Agreement of 1998. It also meant that an uncountable number of lives were saved.
Looking back, it's a degree of pride that I've played a small part in history, done some good in the world.
Peter Taylor, BBC News.
And you can see Peter's full story on BBC Two at 7 p.m. tonight and at 10 to 10 in Northern Ireland. It's also available on iPlayer. 2 teenage boys have appeared in court this morning charged with murdering a 16-year-old who was stabbed to death in Northampton. Rohan Shand died in Kingsthorpe on Wednesday. Our correspondent Angus Crawford is outside Northampton Magistrates Court. Angus, tell us more about what happened there.
Rohan Shand was just 16. He was known to friends and family as Fred. Police say that at about 3:30 on Wednesday afternoon, there was an incident in the Kingsthorpe area of the town and that Rohan received a single stab wound to the chest. He died later of his injuries. We know that since then there's been an online fundraising campaign to support his family, which has raised something like £20,000 already. Immediately after his death, there were 4 arrests of 2 adults and 2 teenagers. The 2 adults were released without charge. The 2 teenagers, aged 14 and 16, last night were charged with Rohan's murder, and today they appeared before magistrates here and were remanded. They'll appear again at Northampton Crown Court on Monday morning.
Angus, thank you. At least 23 people have been killed and dozens injured by tornadoes in the U.S. state of Mississippi. Buildings were seriously damaged or destroyed, and trees and power lines were torn down, with debris thrown several miles into the air. Search and rescue teams are looking for survivors. Security forces in France are on high alert for more protests about President Macron's retirement reforms. The French government wants to push the retirement age up by 2 years to 64. The dispute and outbreaks of violence forced a planned state visit by the king to be postponed. Now, travelling at 17,000 miles an hour, a massive asteroid dubbed the City Killer because of its size is passing between the Earth and the Moon this weekend. Astronomers say the asteroid will pass by safely and has been visible through binoculars since last night. Here's Richard Galpin.
It may look like a tiny dot, but this asteroid is 115 feet across and travelling at 17,000 miles an hour. It is coming comparatively close to our planet. If it were to hit our world, it could do significant damage. It's thought it could destroy a city. This is the moment when an asteroid hit Russia back in 2013, damaging buildings and frightening the local population. But thankfully this time, scientists say there's nothing to worry about.
It's just going to sail straight past us, so it's going to be moving really quite rapidly across the sky, so you'll see it move through lots of different constellations as the night progresses. But yeah, this is not going to hit anything at all, just going to zip past between the Earth and the Moon.
According to NASA, it's an important opportunity for astronomers to increase their knowledge of asteroids in the event that a dangerous object were to be discovered with the potential to hit Earth.
All asteroids are kind of potato-shaped. They're irregular bits of rubble left over from the solar system's formation. But as this one comes closer, we'll be able to study it a bit more and maybe give a more realistic description of what it might look like.
That's important because it may not be the last time this asteroid visits planet Earth.
This orbits the sun as well, and of course that means because it crosses Earth's orbit, it will actually cross over again, and so therefore we will see it in a few years' time.
Check the night sky this evening to see if you can spot it. Richard Galpin, BBC News.
8 pallbearers who carried Queen Elizabeth II's coffin at her funeral are among those to be recognised in a special honours list. King Charles has honoured royal aides and military personnel for the roles they played during the period of national mourning. Angela Kelly, the Queen's dresser, who worked with her for more than 25 years, also received recognition. The Women's Six Nations begins today with Wales hosting Ireland in Cardiff before defending champions England aim to make it a 5th title in a row as they face Scotland in Newcastle. Our women's sports reporter Jo Curry has more.
The last time England stepped out onto a rugby pitch, they were running out for the World Cup final. 4 months on from that shock defeat to New Zealand, and change is afoot, with captain Sarah Hunter retiring after this opening game. England's most capped player, male or female, bowing out in front of a sellout crowd in the city of her birth.
When you start to come to the end of your career, you start to think about perhaps how you want it to end and when you want it to end. And for me, there didn't seem like any better possible way for that to happen. You know, I started playing rugby in Newcastle and finishing. It feels like I've come full circle.
England begin the defence of their title at home to Scotland, who last year finished bottom after losing all 5 games.
I think tactics is a massive one. I think you'll hopefully see a slightly different style of play from us this Six Nations than what you've seen before, and hopefully that's going to allow us to put some more points on the board.
France, runners-up in 2022, travel to Italy, whilst Wales host Ireland, looking to build on last year's 3rd place finish.
To deal with pressure in these big tournaments is new to us, with bigger crowds, more media coverage. You know, we're kind of the guinea pigs of the game at the moment, but trying to thrive on that pressure as well. We created a lot of opportunities out in New Zealand, we just didn't finish, so that's a big focus now, is to convert those points.
Ireland will be hoping that this tournament marks a new period for their women's setup, following their failure to qualify for the World Cup and a public spat between players and the Irish RFU. The side have now been offered full-time contracts and will look to continue the buzz that their men's team enjoyed during their recent Grand Slam victory.
It creates a really good hype around Irish rugby at home, so like it's going to be really exciting for us to kick off our Six Nations after it, and hopefully keep that momentum of support and everyone buying into what Irish rugby is, and we're really excited for it.
It's expected that it will be England and France fighting it out for the title once more. It's now up to the chasing pack to start closing the gap on these two heavyweights.
And Joe is in Newcastle for us now, where that England-Scotland game happens later. Joe.
Yes, the finishing touches just going on here with that match kicking off at 4:45 p.m. But it is, of course, England and France who have dominated this tournament over the last 7 years. England winning 5 titles, France winning 2. But it is worth saying that this will be the first ever year where all 6 teams competing in the Women's Six Nations have been offered some kind of full-time or professional contract by their RFU. So perhaps not this year, but certainly in the coming years, the hope is that the gap between those top 2 sides and the chasing pack will start to narrow. Now, England's opponent, Scotland, today, well, they've got something to prove, having finished bottom last year. The action kicks off, though, in just over an hour's time as Wales host Ireland, those 2 teams finishing 3rd and 4th last year. But here in Newcastle, it's all about Sarah Hunter. One last dance for the England captain, and come the full-time whistle here, you can expect some emotional scenes.
Joe, thank you very much. Earlier this week, we reported on the story of Flight Sergeant Peter Brown, who served in the RAF during the Second World War and died at the age of 96. After an appeal for any surviving relatives to come forward for his funeral, organisers say they have been inundated with requests from the public to attend, and plans are now afoot to move the service to a larger venue in Westminster to honour him. And you can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. The next news on BBC One is at 5:15. Bye for now.